I can say that my message to the team was, we are not just going to trot out a mode from 2008 without bringing something new. This was the response to someone asking about GM mode in a 2K22 AMA/Q&A on Reddit with lead designer Patrick Gilmore, almost 10 months ago. Well, I got some good news for Mr. Gilmore. I've done his work for him, as today we are going into various ways to innovate General Manager mode for 2K22, just in case those top minds couldn't figure it out. My name is Marvin Dahl, welcome to MMD Gaming, let's get started. The best thing about GM mode as a long-term fan is that brand versus brand warfare, and currently WWE has 4 brands, 2 developmental and 2 main brands, and this is where you can have a little fun when it comes to picking a brand. You should have the choice to either start with a Raw or Smackdown, or start with NXT or NXT UK and work your way up. Just like with the old GM modes, you can start with a default roster or draft your own. The initial draft could start off with Raw and SmackDown picking the roster, followed by NXT and NXT UK fighting over the scraps. With some clever AI tricks and financial balancing, there might be a few bigger stars left for NXT and NXT UK, such as Adam Cole, Finn Balor, and Walter in real life, as Raw and SmackDown need to stick to their budget, hiring a few less popular and therefore cheaper stars to fill out their roster, leaving these bigger stars, such as an Adam Cole, amongst those scraps. Customizable brands would be amazing as well. Just before you start your GM adventures, you can pick brands. Maybe you want more major brands. You'll get rid of NXT and NXT UK, add some legends in the menu to pump up the roster, and bring WCW Nitro and ECW back as brands. Raw gets the Undisputed Champion, SmackDown rocking the World Heavyweight title, really giving some meaning to having all these belts and logos in the game. Perhaps you could add a switch as well, determining what brand is a developmental brand and what's a main brand. So you can have 5 major brands in an epic war, or 5 developmental brands really battling to get funds and finally sign those big wrestlers to elevate the brand and become the absolute best. I really do think that if you would implement this idea of various brands, you shouldn't have custom brands. At least not yet. This mainly is all the predetermined brands have their balanced amount of pay-per-views. The balancing needs to be right in this mode or it really sucks the fun out of it. In total, you could have 6 pre-made brands as default, maybe more if you dive further into WWE's history. Obviously, you'd have Raw, SmackDown, NXT and NXT UK, perhaps add some oldies like WC Nitro and ECW, like I mentioned before. Maybe you could even add a Florida Championship Wrestling as a potential developmental brand. This would give everyone the chance to make their general manager mode experience unique and completely their own. At the start of GM mode, you can select 2 to 5 brands, select the arenas, so when you pick Raw you can pick the 1996 Raw arena, or you can pick the Fist arena for SmackDown if you choose SmackDown as one of your brands. Then hop on to selecting the belts for each brand, followed by choosing variations to those belts, such as the Spinner WWE title, the white belt for the Intercontinental Championship, or the big blocked NXT belt, that first version NXT title. The game would then generate pay-per-views, giving SmackDown Armageddon, Raw gets Backlash, with NXT having takeovers and WCW has Starrcade events. All these leading up to your SummerSlams, Survivor Series, Royal Rumbles, and WrestleManias, of course, the big four pay-per-views, which should be cross-brand somehow across all those selected brands, or at least the brands labeled as main brands. Making these cross-brand pay-per-views balanced based on the amount of brands you pick between the 2 and 5 is going to be tricky, but I already gave you the idea too, okay? It's up to you to make it work. Another big change that GM mode would need is a significantly better performing AI with more logical booking. But you honestly don't need to look really far to find a suitable solution to that. We only have to take a look at universe mode to see how a tag team could be booked in a tag match, you know, in the same team as a tag team. The amount of Triple H's versus Shawn Michaels I've seen in my days playing GM mode, while Chad Gaspard and Marcus Corvan are tag champs, recently defeating JTG and Ric Flair for the belts. It's ridiculous. It's unfortunately quite realistic these days, but still ridiculous. Basically, don't treat tag teams the same way Vince does. One thing that also needs to go are those completely broken bookings, such as Mr. Anderson, Elijah Burke, and Bobby Lashley, taking on CM Punk, Bobby Lashley, and Umaga. Yes, that's Bobby Lashley twice. And that's exactly the point I'm trying to make here. Of course, after simulating 2 hours of general manager mode trying to get the footage, such booking didn't happen, typically, right? But you gotta trust me, these bugs definitely happened and they need to go. As well as the fact that the AI could book 2 on 3 handicap matches, while you, as a player, couldn't. I also don't like the idea of, let's say, Cena having a popularity of 98, chasing the United States title, while Snitchkey, who got his popularity buffed up to a whopping 68, is facing off against Randy Orton for the WWE title, just to give an example. The final thing I'd love to see in a new GM mode is advanced booking. It's just a shame to build up this rivalry between, let's say, Edge and Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship. You create a rivalry, build it for weeks on end, pulling in great ratings on every weekly show, but now Edge had a bit of a bad week, getting beat up by Taker before the pay-per-view. He dropped to the 6th spot in the brand's exclusive Powered 15 because of that bad week. Now, Edge can't face Undertaker for the world title, and you have to decide between making your main event all about the world title or to continue that long-running feud. Advanced booking could get rid of it without eliminating the difficulty where someone needs to be hot enough to face for a world title, because that was always a little bit charming. This way, you can make a number 1 contenders match or book the pay-per-view match 4 weeks before the pay-per-view, with a rating loss if you decide against that match on the card itself. Advanced booking could also be a promoting tool, where more fans turn in if someone with a high popularity is booked to compete in events. Wrestlers with a lower popularity might turn fans away when advertised. Now that I've mentioned some ideas for a new GM mode, I really want to state a few things that definitely need to return to give the true GM mode experience. One of them being the Power 25, as the Power 25 and the brand exclusives Power 15s were really fun to work around. To see someone you didn't expect suddenly climb 2 ranks he really shouldn't have, or to finally dethrone that number 1 spot that has been with the same brand for weeks on end, was really cool and added to that brand warfare feel. Popularity ratings should definitely stay as well. I don't want Mojo Rawley to get the same match ratings that Seth Rollins would get. There needs to be a system that defined who's over, who's ready to be world champion, who's ready to be a mid-card champion, and what virtual wrestlers should consider retiring and opening a bakery because they can't get a win under the belt to save their lives. Legends roster and roster customization should stay as well. Some people would love to have Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, and Triple H on their brands, but others want to stick to the current roster. Some might not want to have Matt Riddle in their game, or rather not deal with Roman Reigns, so you need to be able to turn these people off to your desire, just like you used to in the GM modes before. Financial reports, fatigue, and injuries should absolutely stay. Smackdown vs. Raw 2008 had those as optional as well, and that's fine. But when you decide to put Ricochet and Cedric Alexander in a ladder match, it should have that match fatigued them a little bit more than a normal one-on-one bout would. And doing spots in a ladder match will likely lead to more injuries down the line. Also, that having these ladders bought and set up would cost some money in production and material, meaning booking a ladder match will cost more than a singles match. That's just the kind of immersion you want to keep around, at least as an option for players to decide whether they want to deal with it or not. Taking out these elements would be a crying shame and just ruin what the game mode stands for, at least in my opinion. Overall, I'd love to see GM mode come back. To see it come back with some of the elements I've discussed would be absolutely amazing. Anyway, for them to put out a great GM mode, I would be willing to wait another year so they can get it right. Don't put out a half-baked GM mode in 2K22. Make it awesome, and I think it would be a great apology to a lot of disappointed fans. Now it's time for you to drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you miss GM mode? What would you like to see at it if they return the mode? And let me know what you think of my ideas. I'm really curious what people think. While you are in the comments, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Thank you for watching. You are awesome.